Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Well, thank you very much for those very, very kind words. And I want to tell you all straight off that I feel, without being at all falsely humble, I feel totally inadequate to do what I understand is expected of me right now. You've been listening to experts in the various fields that concern themselves with the problem of alcoholism and drug addiction. Each one you've listened to is an expert in one of those fields, field of medicine, psychologists, counselors, psychiatrists, I don't know who all. And now you're going to listen to somebody talking about spirituality, and there's that frightful danger that you're going to think that you're going to listen to an expert in spirituality right now. Well, I have news for you. No way. The only experts in spirituality I know are the saints, and I belong to a fellowship which explicitly declares we are not saints. And I definitely subscribe to that. So all I can do is share with you my understanding of AA's understanding of alcoholism, and from that understanding share with you my understanding of AA's remedy for alcoholism. You have listened to experts talking about this phenomenon of alcoholism and drug addiction. It's a disease. My interest is to underscore the fact that it is not just a disease, period. It is a spiritual disease. And to try to offer you my understanding of AA's understanding of that description of it. It's a disease, first, of the body. For some reason or other, those who are prone to contracting this disease, the mysterious element that makes alcoholics prone to become alcoholics, occasions them to suffer what I call a damaging of the brain. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous explicitly points out the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. And I have listened to experts, and I'm sure you have too, describing how the organ of the body that becomes detrimentally affected is the brain. I don't claim to understand how, in what way precisely. I am not a medical person. But that is the significant, radical consideration for appreciating the disease of alcoholism. Because the brain is the organ of thought. And if that is in some way modified, altered, damaged by this drug, alcohol, then the thinking process has been damaged. The victim of the disease of alcoholism is a person who is programmed to think unrealistically, needless to say, unknown to himself or herself. Because the thought processes are interfered with, the emotions become interfered with. That's because of a very simple fact of life that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. Namely, it's not what's going on out there that makes me feel whatever way I'm feeling. It's what I am thinking about what's going on out there that makes me feel whatever way I'm feeling. And if all my thinking about what's going on out there is screwball thinking, then my emotions are all screwball emotions. I'm suffering from what I call, in my simple, homespun way, emotional hallucinations. I'm feeling terrible, with nothing whatever terrible going on to feel terrible about. And also, I'm feeling great, with nothing particularly great going on to feel great about. All because the radical thing, the mind, has been affected. So from being a disease of the body, and it is a disease of the body before ever your liver or your pancreas becomes affected, because the most important organ of the body has been affected, namely the brain. And so from being a disease of that particular organ of the body, it becomes a disease of the mind. And from being a disease of the mind, it becomes a disease of the emotions. If I'm going through life constantly feeling terrible, constantly feeling emotionally disturbed, then sooner or later, I'm going to find myself saying to myself, to heck with it all. I find myself becoming an unreliable, irresponsible person. If I used to be a reliable person, once this disease gets its hold, I know I'm no longer reliable. I used to be regular, turning up for work, no longer. I used to be honest, I become a liar. I used to be fairly livable with, I become utterly unlivable with. Every single value I used to regard as a value, I no longer regard as a value. They all go down the drain. And so this phenomenon comes about that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous describes as pitiable and incomprehensible demoralization. So there's this disease of alcoholism. It's a disease of the body, the most important organ of the body, a disease of the mind, a disease of the emotions, and a disease of the human spirit itself, a soul sickness, disease of the soul. I want you to notice that. Body, emotions, mind, and soul. What is there left to become diseased? Those are the components that make up the thing called a human being. A human being is a composite of body, mind, emotions, soul. And that's what's diseased. This disease of alcoholism is all pervasive. It's not a disease of a part of me, like any other disease is. What is diseased is the entire entity called the human being. The alcoholic is a living, walking, breathing, crying, laughing disease. He is the disease of alcoholism personified. Alcoholism and drug addiction is a disease of our humanness. This is the way it's conceived, as I have been given to understand, in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a disease of our humanness. It's a disease most especially of those parts of us that distinguish us from all other kinds of beings. A disease of the mind. And a disease of the will, as we'll see in a moment. I want to ask you to reflect a moment on the implications of a person's mind being detrimentally affected. And by the way, irreversibly and permanently. When a person is programmed to think unrealistically and to think he's thinking realistically, that is one heck of a situation to be in when you think about it. If I am, because I'm allergic to this drug, alcohol, which has affected my brain, if I am programmed to think unrealistically, and the people who are the experts in this area tell us, AAs, members of Alcoholics Anonymous, that the unrealistic thinking is about what I conceive of as good for me. I'm programmed to think unrealistically about my own welfare, my own well-being. Now that's one heck of a thing to be stuck with. To be programmed to think self-destructively and to think I'm thinking constructively about my own welfare. That's like having a car that's programmed to bang into the wall. If I am programmed to think unrealistically, then I can never think myself out of that way of thinking. Talking about a car, it's like a car with the gears stuck in reverse. Every time I tap that pedal or engage the engine, that car is going to go backwards. As long as the gear is stuck, it'll never go forwards. As long as I choose to think about my own welfare, if I'm programmed to think unrealistically about it, I will always think unrealistically about it and cannot think myself out of that way of thinking. And nobody else can help me. Why? Did you ever try to talk sense to a self-destructive alcoholic? Talk sense to him about his drinking, about his behavior, about his lifestyle, about the whole way he goes on. Try to talk sense to him. The catch-22 is sense only makes sense to a sensible person. Sense always makes nonsense to a nonsensical person. The only thing that makes sense to a nonsensical person is nonsense. Like, let's have another drink and call the whole thing off. Now that makes sense. And this is the actual situation that an active alcoholic is in. This, of course, is the basis of the whole denial thing. He's programmed to think he knows what's good for him. Starting with, would you like to give a guess? He thinks he knows everything that's good for him, starting with, alcohol, what else? Of course. He's convinced that it's great to get smashed. And he's still convinced it's great to get smashed. I used to be convinced it was great to get smashed, even when the evidence that was to the contrary was massive. I still thought it was great to get smashed. Even though every time I did, I made a jackass of myself. I got myself in all kinds of trouble. I hurt myself, hangovers, and I couldn't tell you what all. Made a utter disgrace of myself in public. I'd get over a hangover. Within the week, someone would propose, will we have a drink? Oh man, of course, what else? Programmed to think that it was great to get drunk. A little child could say to me, Uncle Bill, I wish you didn't drink. A little child could see what I literally could not see. That's the awful bind that the alcoholic is in, and that AAs become aware of and draw attention to. As well as the problem up here, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous draws attention to a problem down here. It's not only the human mind that is diseased. If a person is smitten with the disease of alcoholism or drug addiction, there's another part of him that's very, very vital that's diseased as well. The big book calls it his will, his power of choice, his power of self-determination. The big book has a name for that. It calls it self-will. Self-will. I want to ask you for a moment to dwell a little while on this thing called self-will. What is it? Well, all it is wanting what I want. That's all. Wanting what I want, regardless of what anyone else wants. That's all. Wanting what I want. The big book has terrible things to say about that. That is the supreme demon. And if you read the big book in a cursory sort of way, you'll swallow all that. But if you're like me, you'll want to stop there and say, hey, what's wrong with self-will? What's wrong with wanting what I want? What's wrong with that? It's perfectly normal. It's perfectly natural. Or is it? Let me ask you now, just for a minute, to do a little bit of thinking about what happens every time I want whatever it is I want. Just do some slow motion reflecting on it. I want more money. I want a different job. I want a new car. I want status. I want recognition. I want, whatever it is I want. What happens every time? Well, I either get it or I don't get it. What happens if I don't get it? If I don't get it? Anybody awake? If I want something and I don't get it, I get angry, I get disappointed, I hurt. I'm disappointed, I hurt. if I don't get what I want? What happens if I do get it and it doesn't turn out all it was cracked up to be? Now what happens? I'm disappointed. I'm angry. I'm back at square one. And the more I wanted it, and the more it doesn't turn out all it's cracked up to be, the more I hurt. What happens if I do get it, and it does turn out all it was cracked up to be? Now what happens? You want more. There speaks a true alcoholic. Of course you want more. And the more it turns out all it was cracked up to be, the more you want it. And if you don't get more, what happens? I'm disappointed. I'm angry. I hurt. Now, what happens if it does turn out all it was cracked up to be, and I want more, and I get more, and I want more, and I get more, and I reach saturation point, so there's no more to reasonably want? Now what happens? I'm afraid I'll be haunted with fear. Exactly. I'll be haunted with fear that I'm going to be deprived of it. That's a fact. Shakespeare says, unhappy lies the head that wears the crown. Everybody who makes it to the top is a cockshy for all the others trying to get him the heck out of there. And he knows it. And he has to have bodyguards, and I couldn't tell you what all. You're haunted with fear in case you lose it. Or you get bored. Is this all there is? You know by now that I was not born in the United States, huh? But I didn't stay very long where I was born. I lived for 30 years in England. And when I lived in England, before I came out here, I saw a documentary on television, BBC television, about a guy that you've all heard of. His name was J. Paul Getty. You ever hear of him? The big oil magnate. J. Paul Getty ended his days in England in retirement. He was a multi-billionaire. Multi-billionaire, not a common millionaire, a billionaire. Not even God knew how much he was worth. God is still working on it to figure it out. But it showed on this documentary J. Paul living in this, one of these stately homes of England that only the royal dukes could afford. And here he was living in this gorgeous palatial place in the midst of rolling parkland, surrounded by moats and electronic burglary devices and guards and bloodhounds, and I couldn't tell you what all. And inside were all these unbelievable treasures. The whole place and it was richer than the Vatican. And be careful what becomes of these tapes, Walt. Anyway, there was this old man, and I remember watching him. The cameras followed him around. He was living alone in the midst of this utter magnificence and splendor. Every kind of treasure that money could buy was piled up in there. Tapestries, paintings, gilt stuff, silverware, porphyry, marble. I couldn't tell you what all. The thing was mind-boggling. But I remember there was one shot of him sitting at the head of this long table with candles all down the table and beautiful chandeliers hanging out of the ceiling. And here was this wizened old man sitting at the head of the table eating peanuts. You think he had just loped down off the trees yesterday. And I remember saying to myself as I was watching him, Suppose the most beautiful woman that God could make materialized and presented herself to him and said, J. Paul, you and I could do wonderful things together. What do you think J. Paul would be thinking? How much does this so-and-so want? That's a fact. That's what he would be thinking. But just look at the significance of that. That man has blocked out of his life, by piling into it all that there is to get materially, he has blocked out all possibility of ever knowing human contentment and happiness. How is human contentment and happiness brought about? By loving what's truly lovable, and by being loved for your own sweet little sake, not for the sake of what you have that people can get out of you. He has blocked out all possibility of ever being happy. He can never be sure when anyone would tell him, I love you. He could never be sure. And that's what happens when you get all that there is to get. You're either haunted with the fear of losing it, or you're bored with it, and you block out all possibility of real human happiness. Those are facts, not theories. Those are facts. The fact is, when I want whatever it is I want, I'm going to hurt, whether I get it or whether I don't. That's a fact of the human condition. And every human being living and breathing needs to become aware of that. And none of us is aware of it. And it's the most basic fact of human existence. Every time I want what I want, regardless, I am going to hurt whether I get it or whether I don't. And that's the fact about life that the AA Fellowship has become vitally aware of. We have made decisions based on self, which later place us infallibly in a position to be hurt. So all our troubles are of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And listen to this. And the alcoholic is only an extreme example of self-will run riot. There's what's wrong with the alcoholic. What's wrong with him is what's wrong with everybody, but much more so. The alcoholic wants. The alcoholic wants as no other being on the face of the earth wants. He wants what he wants. He craves it. He wants it desperately. He's programmed to want. He cannot stop himself wanting, and he wants intensely. He wants his booze. The drug addict wants his fix. And that faculty of wanting, intense wanting, affects all his wanting. And so he hurts more when he doesn't get whatever he wants, more than others who are not addicts want. And when he hurts over frustration, over not having his way, over whatever it is he wants his way over, he has found a way out of deadening the pain. And his way out is get the cork out of the bottle, get his fix, And he sets himself up to hurt all over again, more and more. There's the bind. There's the treadmill on which an alcoholic and drug addict is caught. Notice, these two things compound one another. He thinks he knows what's good for him. And thinking he knows what's good for him, he goes for what? He goes for it. Because he wants it so much, he convinces himself that it's good for him. This affects this, and this affects this. And so it goes on. And that is the disease of alcoholism. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness, of wanting what we want. We must, or it kills us. And now comes the million-dollar question. How do you stop wanting? How do you stop wanting what you want? How do you stop willing what self-will makes you will? Not by your willpower. You can't cure self-will by self-will. So what you going to do? I'm noticing the way you laugh, and that's good. The human condition is laughable and tragic. It's appalling. But we're looking at something right now and thinking about something that nobody out there in that big, big world ever thinks about. They think it's perfectly normal to go through life wanting what they want. Is it normal? We were all born wanting. We wanted our mother's milk, and we bawled until we got it, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't. If I had been indifferent to whether I could have had my mother's milk or not, I wouldn't be here. I was born wanting. I depend for my survival on wanting. And yet, in wanting what I want, I'm destroying myself. We must be rid of this. They're telling us in the big book, we must, or it kills us. So the very thrust for survival that's planted in us is the very thing that's destroying us. Did you ever see such a situation since you were born? And that is the human condition. Now, you and I thinking about this right here, right now, are not the first people on the planet ever to advert to it and think about it. The greatest minds the race has ever produced has occupied themselves with this fact of human existence. And some of them came up with suggestions about what we can all do about it. Buddha came up with a very simple suggestion. He simply said, stop wanting. Stop wanting. The extinction of all human desire is the secret of human contentment. Nirvana. Nada. Nothing. Want nothing. And the symbol of it, as you all know, is the Buddha with the eyes cast down, letting that big world there passing by, not even looking at it in case it might solicit his desires, and looking at zero down here, contemplating his navel. It's not a very colorful existence, but it's an honest answer to the problem. There's only one other answer possible. There's only one other option. And it's so simple, we never get round to seeing it. Given the fact that I cannot stop wanting what I want, cannot stop wanting, what's the only other option I have besides stopping wanting? There's only one. Stop wanting what you want and start wanting what someone else wants for you. Or who else wants for you? Whoever the heck knows what's good for me. Find him, her, it, whatever, and start wanting what he, she, it wants for me, and I have it made. And the first person to give that answer was the founder of Christianity. And another person gave the same answer 50-odd years ago, pondering the awful predicament of the alcoholic. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God alone makes that possible. What's going to kill the alcoholic? Wanting whatever God wants for me and can empower me to settle for is the only way out. That answer was given 2,000 years ago by a figure central in human history. And consciously or unconsciously, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous gave the very same answer to the very same problem. We had to quit playing God. It simply didn't work and never will. In this drama of life, God has to become our director. He is to be the principal, we his agents, he the father, we his children, and that's the beginning and end of the solution to the problem. This is awful banal, childish stuff, but it's at the very, very, very uttermost roots of everything that's wrong with the alcoholic and everything that's wrong with everybody. Everybody. Starting with me. Everything that's wrong. When EE calls alcoholism a spiritual problem, it's making a statement about the human being. The same statement that Dr. Milam made here yesterday morning. The human being is a spiritual entity. He's a physical, psychological, intellectual, spiritual being, with all those words hyphenated. His brain is spiritually animated. His emotions are spiritually animated. His will, his power of choice, his power of self-determination is a spiritual entity. He's not fully explicable in terms of chemistry. He transcends chemistry. He is an assemblage of chemistry, and God knows what all else that's observable and all that sort of thing. But that entire entity is suffused with a reality of another order altogether. And because it is that entire reality that belongs to a transcendent order, that a transcendent remedy is the only remedy for what's wrong with it. Alcoholism is a spiritual disease calling for a transcendent spiritual remedy, because it is a disease of the humanness itself of the alcoholic. And so we turn now to the remedy proposed by this phenomenon called Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous, what is it? It's two things. It's two things, and these two are one, mysteriously one. It's a fellowship of men and women. It's a fellowship. And it's also a program, a set of things to do, simple things to do, the 12 steps. It's neither one of those things alone that constitutes the remedy for the alcoholic's condition. It's neither one of those two things alone. The remedy is integration into the fellowship, surrender to and practice of the steps. But one is not availing of the remedy by integrating into the fellowship, going to meetings, and never doing anything about the steps. Neither is one availing of the remedy by getting the big book with the 12 steps and going in a huddle in a corner and saying, oh yeah, I must do that, I must do that, I must do that, and that's going to make me sober and sane and all the rest. No. It is the two things together, the fellowship and the program. It's the fellowship that enshrines the remedy. It's the fellowship that interprets the remedy, explains it, empowers one to fulfill it. The remedy can be described in either one of two ways. It's the steps in the hands of and proclaimed by the fellowship, or it is the fellowship proclaiming the steps and empowering one to fulfill, whichever way you look at it. It's the two things together that constitute the remedy for what's wrong. And what's wrong is that an insane person has to be restored to sanity, and he is totally powerless, as we've already seen, to do that for himself. If I'm insane, if I'm programmed to think unrealistically about my own well-being, no, I can never think myself out of that way of thinking. And no human power can do it for me. You've seen that. So, having wakened up to my condition, to my utter powerlessness, I now have to see what it is that has to be done to me by this entity called AA. My mind has to be somehow affected and brought back to realistic thinking. And the simple way that AA has devised for doing that is to tell the alcoholic, get yourself to meetings. Start going to meetings. Go to meetings and listen. Listen. What goes on at AA meetings? Talk. That's what goes on. A lot of talk. Not just coffee and cigarettes, but a lot of talk. People are talking. And they're talking about two main things. They're talking about drinking, and they're talking about living. And the talk that they're talking about, those two things, is sense. They're talking sense about those two things. About the first, they're saying, don't, that's all. Don't drink, don't drink today, don't. Now that makes sense, that's sense. But don't forget what I told you. When the alcoholic starts going to meetings, sense does not make sense to him. There's talk going on about living, all kinds of sense being talked. But it doesn't make sense to the alcoholic. So what do we say? Keep coming back. Keep coming back. Sense is real stuff. It's as real as booze. It's as real as medication. It's as real as an injection. Sense. These noises coming out of the front of the hole of my face here, these noises are conveying ideas, sense, hopefully, from out of this thing in here. That's what's going on at an AA meeting. The person is being bombarded with sense. It bounces off him for a long time. Bounces off. He experiences, this is the most banal nonsense I ever listened to, right? Idiotic stuff, this. What the heck am I doing here? Listen to this drivel. You're in the right place. We tell him. This is AA's simple way of restoring the alcoholic to sanity. If he keeps coming back, if he keeps listening, he's going to hear one fine day someone saying something like, you know, all we have to do really, it's no big deal, there's no big problem. All we have to do is just not drink for one day. That's all. That's all I ever have to do. I'm not going to disintegrate. I'm not going to die for not drinking for just a day. That's all I ever have to cope with. Yesterday is gone, doesn't exist. And all the yesterdays are gone. They don't exist. Tomorrow hasn't come, or any of the tomorrows. Don't exist. All I ever have to cope with is today. Because that poor alcoholic, you see, in his insane thinking, has been thinking about a long road stretching out in front of him to the day he dies without a drink. My God, I can never hold out. That's stinking thinking. There's no such thing as a big long road there. No such thing. That's illusory. There is only today. That is all. That's all there ever is. One day is all you ever have to cope with. And a light goes on after he's heard something like that for the billionth time. He says, good Lord, you know, that's true. I never thought. That guy who said that guy should be in a philosophy chair in Harvard or something. That's fantastic. A little bit of realism has gotten in. A little chunk of unrealism has been dumped out. And so it goes on. So it goes on. Now, God alone makes it possible to do what has to be done down here, to get rid of self-will, which is the root of all the pain, the problems, the wanting what I want. God alone. The God thing figures almost immediately when the alcoholic presents himself on the threshold of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he's going to find God mentioned. His name is all over the 12 steps. He runs into it straight away at step 3. You got to let God run your life and stop trying to run it yourself. But does this mean that if I have problems about this God idea, that I have to sit down and work out whether or not there's a real God before this remedy, this AA thing, can be a remedy for me? I'll have to sit down and work out whether there's a God or not. And the first question I want to ask a person who raises that is, sit down and work it out. Work out the solution to the biggest conundrum has ever faced the most brilliant minds the race has ever produced. You propose to sit down and figure that out? With what? With what? Oh, good heavens, no, no, no. No. And this is where we have to step carefully to get the hang of this thing. There are two kinds of people who present themselves to AA. people who have a belief in a personal God and people who haven't, who have doubts about it. Now, to both those sets of people, AA has something to say straight away, right while they're on the threshold there. People coming along with a belief in some kind of God or some kind of belief, and people without. AA has the same thing to say to both of those. It says, if you want what we have, and we're only too anxious to give you, if you want what we have, you've got to be prepared to go to any length to get it. And that involves getting rid of all your old ideas, because the result is going to be nil until you do. Now just think of that for a moment. That's the very first thing that's asked of the person, the poor drunk, the poor drug addict, coming to AA right on the doorstep. If you want what we have, you've got to get rid of all your old ideas. The result is going to be nil until you do. What do you mean, all my old ideas? All the ideas you ever tried to live by. Ideas about God, ideas about right and wrong, ideas about what matters, how to handle life, what the values are and what they aren't. You have to get rid of them all. The result is going to be nil until you do. That's one heck of a tall order. But the guys who put together this prescription for the recovery of the alcoholic, these guys knew what they were talking about, and they knew whom they were talking to. Nobody knew better. And when they make a demand like that, they know what they're talking about. And they mean it. I've got to get rid of all my old ideas. Ideas about God, ideas about right and wrong. Pooh. Why? Why? Good question. When I tell you that I'm an alcoholic, among the things that I mean by that statement is that I am taught by AA to understand that I am allergic to this drug, alcohol. I'm allergic to it. It does things to me. It upsets me. It's not for me. I cannot process it normally. It damages me. Saying I'm allergic to alcohol doesn't mean there's anything necessarily wrong with alcohol. No, nothing wrong with it. It means there's something wrong with me. It's not for me because of the way I'm put together. I can't process. Now, if I'm an alcoholic, and if I'm also a Roman Catholic, I am not just allergic to alcohol. I am allergic to Roman Catholicism. That does not necessarily mean there's anything wrong with Roman Catholicism. All it means is there is something wrong with me. I cannot and do not process that stuff normally. It does things to me that its author, if it has an author, never meant it to do to me. It affects me in such a way that one minute I'm reaching for the stars. I want to become a canonized saint yesterday. I can't make it, so I'm plunged into despair, guilt, self-disgust. One minute I'm trying to be another St. Francis of Assisi. The next minute I'm a rampaging demon with no sense of responsibility whatever. That's what that stuff does to me. So, the guys who put this program together knew this. So the first thing they say to me is, get rid of all that stuff. Get rid of it. We're not asking you to permanently disown it. No. Put it all on hold for the time being until you are restored to sanity. Then you can dabble in it and do what you like with it as much as you like. But until you're restored to sanity, get rid of it. Put it all on hold. That's very important. Now, you can't just empty your mind and go around with a vacuum. so they say, as well as get rid of what you come in here with, we want to ask you to listen to us and trust us. Trust us. We know how to make you well. We want to ask you to make a new act of faith. An act of faith in us. An act of faith in AA. We want you to say and to believe, and to say and to mean, I believe in AA. I believe that it works. That it can restore me to sanity, to serenity, to enjoyable living instead of just trying to endure. It can do for me the wonder that I need to have done to me. I believe it can. Now, it isn't the easiest thing in the world to make that act of faith. Anyone who can't or refuses to make it is equivalently saying to himself or herself that there are a couple of million AAs out there who are all engaged in a vast conspiracy. They're all winking at each other, and they're saying to me and to nincompoops like me, let's tell this jackass that this thing works. We all know it doesn't, but let's tell him that it does. That's the only alternative for the person who refuses to make that act of faith. I believe that AA works. The evidence that it does is right there before your eyes. It's massive. People who used to be what I am now are no longer what I am now, and are enjoying sane human beings without booze, without drugs. So we ask you to make an act of faith in us. And when you do that, you are surrendering yourself to us. And you then have in your life what you must have in your life if you're ever to get well. A power greater than yourself. A higher power. When they talk of this higher power, they don't mean high up that way. Anything is a power greater than me that I allow to be, that I surrender myself to. Any entity or agency or collectivity that I allow to influence my thinking, and as a result of influencing my thinking, influencing my feelings, my emotions, and as a result of influencing my feelings and my thinking, influencing my attitudes, my behaviors, my lifestyle. Any agency that I surrender myself to and allow to have that much control over me, influence over me, I make a power greater than myself. The first requirement for the remedy to start having its effect is the whole purpose for which we have written this book, for which we have put together, in other words, the thing called AA, is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself that will solve your problem. So you begin by having this power greater than yourself, which is the phenomenon of AA itself, that you surrender yourself to by integrating yourself into the fellowship, listening to what they have to say, absorb, read the big book, absorb. There are two ideas that AA wants to get into our heads straight away. And now it's addressing itself for the moment to someone who comes into the program already believing in a God, a personal God. If you must have a God, they say to us, trust us and believe that God loves you. Period. Whatever other idea you've ever had, get rid of it. Now, we're not here to be theologians. We're here to tell you what works. Whether in fact it's theologically true that he does or he doesn't, let's not dispute about it. Believe that he does, and you'll find yourself getting well. Don't, and you won't. That's the attitude. AAs do not consider themselves theologians. They do consider themselves to have discovered something. A way of thinking and of doing that's going to make you sober, sane, emotionally serene, and competent to enjoy life and not just endure it a day at a time. We guarantee that here with gilt-edged guarantee if you do what we're asking you. Believe God loves you. Believe God loves you. Not that he used to before you started messing up. Not that he's going to whenever you get your act cleaned up. He loves you as is. In all your mess, and all your stench, and all your stink, that's what he loves. He really does. Believe that. Believe it. Believe it. You'll find wonderful things happening to you if you do. Second thing we want you to believe is, you are not a sinner. You're not a bad person who has to become good. You're a very, very sick person through no fault whatsoever of your own who has to become well. All that has been in your life that you feel guilty about, that you feel ashamed about, that you feel terrible about, there isn't one bit of fault or sin in it all. You were programmed to carry on that way. Believe that. God loves you because you are very, very sick. In a way that you don't understand yourself, but we do. And you will understand when you get to where we're at. And we'll help you to. That's the attitude. That's the approach. I'll talk in a minute about the people, what it has to say to the people who don't believe in God at all when they come in. I just want to deal with this group now who come in, and these are the very, very first demands that they're met with by the whole AA setup. Get rid of all your old ideas. God loves you. Accept that. Don't question it. He loves you unconditionally. He loves you as much as God can love. He loves you tenderly. Whatever way you can represent a loving person, deity, represent yourself to yourself in whatever terms you can figure out. Someone who wants to embrace you, hug you, press you to his heart, her heart, whatever way. That's the way it is. Believe us, we know. And you are not a sinner. And you never have been from the day you crossed the dividing line between being non-addicted and becoming addicted. Ever since you crossed that division, you never sinned. As my first sponsor said to me, to commit a sin, you know, bucko, you have to be a mature, responsible human being. So you needn't worry. Now, those of you who are familiar with the 12 steps run into this God thing straight away. After start going to meetings and looking at the steps, you're going to be restored to sanity if you keep going to the meetings, keep listening, keep reading the big book, keep talking to your sponsor, keep trying to share what's inside you, and you will become aware of the nonsense you're filled with. And people will help you to become aware of it in some way that's a part of the mystery, I suppose you can call it, of Alcoholics Anonymous. People can accept from their fellow members of AA what they couldn't accept from a therapist, for instance. If I was sent to therapists galore before I started going to AA, and they had no effect on me whatever except to make me angrier and angrier. When a therapist told me I was full of BS, I stormed out of his office. When a fellow member of AA told me I was full of BS, different experience altogether. Different altogether. He's my pal for life. That's the way they love one another. This is part of the mystery. It's all part of the restoration to sanity. But there's this other thing, this will of ours, that is the absolute devil of our existence, wanting what we want. How in the world do I get into a way of living in a totally different manner, totally different? This is the great problem, to stop wanting what I want. Step 3 is sometimes a problem for certain kinds of people when they come into the program. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we came to understand them, as we understood them. And people constantly say, I have problems with that. Even the people who believe that God is a real entity, a real person. What I'm trying to say is a lot of people misread and misunderstand that step. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. That step does not require us to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Thinking that it does is what makes the problem. It only asks us to make a decision to. I have made a decision right now to go back to San Diego. I haven't gone, but I've made a decision to. To make a decision to do something and to actually do it are two totally different things. Two totally different things. All I'm asked to do in the third step is to make a decision. Sometime, someday, to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. That is all. When do I actually implement what I decide to do in the third step? When do I actually do it? Only after I have taken the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. When I've taken all that and really taken them, then, and only then, is God running my life. If taking the third step meant actually turning my life over to God for him to run the whole thing, we don't need for any other steps. My whole problem is solved. We don't need for any more. And moreover, I'd be a canonizable saint right then. People make an awful hoo-ha about this. It's the easiest step of the whole 12. Because you're not asked to do a darn thing. You're asked to decide to do it sometime. Now, to get on with the business of doing it, get on with the fourth, the fifth, and all the rest of it. I'm not going to discuss each one of the steps because you want to get out of here sometime. I want to jump to, of all things, the 11th step. When I give weekend retreats to newcomers to AA to help them to get a handle on the program, I give the whole retreat on the 11th step. The 11th step is we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and for the power to carry that out. You may say to me, good heavens, you're making an awful jump way off down to the 11th step. I don't think so. I want you to notice what the 11th step says. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Improving something presupposes that it's been going on already. And this business of being in touch with God and getting God in touch with you is supposed to start as soon as you come into the program if you are a believer in God. I'll get around to the other ones in a minute. But this business of getting to be in touch with God and having God in touch with you has got to start immediately. I want you to notice what the big book says about the 11th step. When, for instance, we retire at night, if we're doing our prayer and meditation, as it's called, then we constructively review our day. Now listen, see if this reminds, many of you know the steps, I hope. Huh? Tell me now what step this reminds you of. This is what you're to do in doing your 11th step. We constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Does that remind you of any step? Fourth step. Do we owe an apology? 8 and 9. Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person? 5th step. Were we kind and loving? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Were we thinking of what we could do for others? 12th step. So if I'm fulfilling the 11th step, I'm fulfilling all the steps, or keeping tags on my fulfillment of them all. That is why, for me, the 11th step is the heart and core and center of the whole AA program. And I want to finish by, this is a chalk there. Yes. Prayer and meditation. What I'm going to try to indicate to you is that this AA program is from first to last a call to prayer. The alcoholic who surrendered to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is called to a life of prayer as AA understands it. And without it, there ain't no program. There ain't no program. There may be a soulless imitation of it, but the program is only working for the alcoholic at half cock, if that. You're missing out everything that the program has to offer unless there is prayer and meditation in the sense envisaged. Now, I want to very briefly indicate what they're really talking about. Prayer and meditation. When the step talks about prayer and meditation, isn't meditation prayer? Sure. Well, what's the sense of talking about prayer and prayer? What's behind that is a very simple thing. In all traditions, Oriental, Western, all religions that have prayer involved in them, they all recognize that there are two kinds of prayer. Two kinds. One is the kind called contemplation, and the other is the kind called meditation. And the guys who put this program together, I'm perfectly sure, knew that if they wanted to empty the meeting rooms of AA, they would start talking about contemplation. So they just used the generic word prayer. What is contemplation? Contemplation and what is contemplation? It's the simplest thing imaginable. All it is this is what the alcoholic has to learn to do. All it is making love to God. Joying in God making love to you. Period. That's all. You see, once you start taking this God thing seriously, you've got to start listening to what you're telling yourself. God loves me. That's the most mind-boggling, fantastic, utterly devastating statement that anyone could ever address you with. God loves you. God does. He does now. He's been doing it all your life. He's going to do it throughout your entire existence. If that is true, that is the most breathtaking fact about yourself that you could possibly tell yourself, or have anyone else tell you. And if you've never paused and said, my God, how is that possible? But it is. You have never really believed it at all. It's just words that bounced off your forehead. And that's all that contemplation is. That's all it has ever been for its practitioners. And the practitioners of contemplation go way back, way, way back. The great St. Augustine in the 4th century. To contemplate is to switch on awareness of God. He's there all the time. Just like the waves that come out of the television transmitter are in this room somehow or other. I don't understand it all, but God is here. He's with us. He's on top of us. The air that surrounds us, that we breathe in, that we live by, is a symbol of God, the source of all life. Oh God, make me aware of your realness, your nearness, my dearness to you. Just let the glow inside you glow. Oh God, I'm so happy that you love me. This is something every single human being is meant to do and was always meant to do. This is what meant to give us the mood change. This is what meant to make us happy. This is normal. Not to be doing this regularly as you take your food for your body, is abnormal. If it is once true that I'm of God's own making, that I am made to image him, mirror him, in a way that he can be proud of me in some way, make me to be like himself, a loving and a lovable person like himself, joying in him loving me. If these are the basic facts about my own existence and reality, then to live as if they weren't is to be insane. Is to be living a totally abnormal life. And that's once again all that's wrong. The ancient prophets of Israel said long ago, with desolation is the whole land laid desolate, because there is no one who thinketh in the heart. There's a lovely phrase, to think in the heart. To let your heart beat over what you're thinking about, what you're switching on awareness of. Contemplation of God. Of this loving God. This loving God who's a loving God, and what the Jews believe. Christians believe in a loving God. The Jews believe in a saving God. He loves to deliver me from all that's destroying me. He wants to. He knows how to. He aches to. And he will if I let him. But I must become aware of that. I must joy in that awareness. I must create an oasis in my life. Shut out all the madness, all the egoism, all the 7 deadly sins that are rampant in that whole herd called American society. Shut it out. And get a little oasis. Maybe first thing in the morning, maybe last thing at night. I don't know where, I don't know how, but this is a must if I'm to be restored to sanity, to actuality. Contemplation. Contemplation of God. Meditation. What's meditation? It's all those other things. It's withdrawing my awareness, without blocking it out, of the smile on my Father's face, looking on me with love. And turn my awareness in on myself and become aware of what's going on in my own life, in my own guts. 4th step, 10th step, 8th step, 9th step, all that's going on inside in me. But becoming aware of it with an awareness that's not all sin. He's not frowning. He's looking on me with love. And he can relieve me of all that. But he wants me to ask him to. Praying only for the knowledge of his will, for an awareness of what he wants me to be like rather than what I am like. Praying only for the knowledge of his will and for the power to carry it out. This has to go on. Inventory, every day. 10th step, not just 4th. Continue to take it every day under the gaze of God. Inventory, making amends, getting rid of resentments, all the stuff that's destroying me. Self-will run riot, wanting what I want. Here's the 12 and 12, talking about the 11th step. Self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for living. Listen to this. Now and then, we will be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality which gives ecstasy to God's blessed in his heavenly kingdom. Now and then, when a human being tries to do what this 11th step asks us to do, you'll be given a little foretaste of what's in store for you in the hereafter, in the last final embrace of union with your Maker in heavenly glory. That's the birthright of every child of God journeying through life. This whole AA program is meant to be a process in which I get close to God. I invite God to come close to me simply by my switching on awareness of Him and shutting out awareness of everybody and everything else whatsoever. I'm meant to be absorbed in the realization that I'm God's kid, loved by Him out of sight. No matter where I'm coming from, no matter where I'm at, no matter what my story has been or is at this minute, if I'm coming straight from the pigsty, God loves me. He wants to take me in His arms. And whatever way you have of representing what it means to be loved, represent it to yourself. This is contemplation. And it's in that embrace that I'm meant to look at my own self. And from an awareness of all that's self-centered, all that's resentful, all that's proud, covetous, lustful, angry, bitter, ambitious, all that militates against my own real well-being, I fall before Him, asking only for the knowledge of His will for me and for what it takes to carry it out. Without this encounter with your Maker on a daily basis, there is no AA program going on as the program is envisaged. And if that is going on, then God will do His thing. God will do His thing. There's 1,000,000 old-timers there to tell you. What is this AA spirituality really all about? It's all about a thing called serenity. And what is serenity? Well, suck it and see. Each one of us has to find out for ourselves. But let me end with this. Oh, what time have I to end? Soon? Huh? I'm done. Let me end with this final thought. I didn't get around to the agnostics. I will the next time round. There's a poem at the beginning of the good book. It's only a poem celebrating the fact that God made our world. He made it in 7 days, a day at a time. That's the poetic celebration of it. He was a good AA person. He worked a day at a time. And it describes fancifully what God made on each day. And at the end of each day, the refrain says, and God saw all the things that He had made, that they were very good. God feels good about the content of every day. And the content of some days is very mysterious, weird, and even ugly. But God feels good about the content of every day. All I have ever wanted out of life is to feel good. To feel good. Where does feeling good come from? I used to think that it comes from having what I want. That it comes from things being arranged out there the way I want them to be arranged. People having attitudes towards me that I wanted them to have, then I'd feel good. That was wrong. That is not where feeling good comes from. But as long as I think it does, I will always strive and struggle to set things up out there the way I want them. But that is not where feeling good comes from. There's an infinite reservoir of feeling good about the content of every day in the heart and the spirit of God Himself. And I have to get plugged into that somehow. I have to get myself in conscious contact with Him by wanting for myself whatever His will is for me. And when I have that contact, in a mysterious way, as the big book says, there flows into the human spirit from out of the divine spirit the serenity, the peace, the feeling good that mirrors God's own. There is where everything is all at. The poor alcoholic tried to find it in drugs, in alcohol and whatever. He was right in wanting to break out of his humdrum self and realizing that it's not in himself. but he was looking in the wrong direction first. And that's what EE does. It really does. And my only wish for you all is that you all find it out. All of us are God's children, made to be in touch with him to be in touch with us, and somehow, if we are, through the fulfillment of that 11th step, we'll meet again sometime as we trudge the road of happy destiny. God bless you all.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.